Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video, well, it's definitely going to be interesting. In today's video, we're featuring battles submitted by a member of the community, Jocko Loco, and he's running a newly buffed Pokemon, Lock-On Gigalith. Now, is Lock-On truly a buff to Gigalith? Well, the Sims definitely disagree. On Sims, Lock-On Gigalith performs substantially worse. However, Jocko Loco submitted this footage to try and change my mind. His full team features Fearow as the lead, with the newly buffed Earthquake Clodsire and Gigalith in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go Gigalith. He picks up a slightly negative lead in game number 1, leading Fearow into Azumarill. Unfortunately, Azumarill is a pretty big core breaker for this team, but getting a catch and sneak onto the Clodsire is a good way to start. Even though Clodsire does take super effective from Ice Beam, because Clodsire is so massively bulky, I would argue this is actually the best place to absorb this energy. This Clodsire is also not running the traditional Stone Edge, but instead running Sludge Bomb. So Sludge Bomb will hit for big super effective damage onto Azumarill. Azumarill makes it to Ice Beam number 2, but that's just simply not a problem for Clodsire. Clodsire hangs on, surviving the bubble damage to make Sludge Bomb number 2. That's going to be knocking out Azumarill and winning switch advantage. In comes Charjabug, answered with the Lock-On Gigalith, and immediately I noticed this Gigalith is not running the Comdade Legacy move of Meteor Beam. Instead, Jocko has opted for Rock Slide. Rock Slide is going to hit for substantially less damage than Meteor Beam, but the benefit is that it's going to have way better pacing. Rock Slide pressuring a shield away from Charjabug, already at Rock Slide number 2, and just like that, Charjabug is going to have to give up both Protect Shields, or basically lose their entire Charjabug. Charjabug's Volt Switches are shredding through the Gigalith. This Pokemon cannot take a hit to save its life. Charjabug goes to the discharge. Gigalith outpaces and makes Rock Slide number 3. Will this take the knockout here? No, Charjabug survives. In the back is Tinkaton, and this superpower is going to hurt. This is going to be hitting for big neutral damage. Superpower lands. Gigalith going to stay on the field, force energy out of the Tinkaton, and then it's going to be all up to Fearow. Fearow does have a lot of stored energy from earlier in the game. Fearow farms up, getting as much energy as possible before firing off the Drill Run on the CMP tie. This has to be enough. Drill Run lands, Tinkaton falls, and this game is over. Back in comes the Charjabug. It's losing charge stack priority. Drill Peck takes the KO, and that's a good game. Hopping into game number 2, we've got a perfect mirror lead Fearow into Fearow. This matchup is going to be entirely decided on who wins charge stack priority. We're not going to find that out just yet. Opponent throwing immediately, but Jocko is going to look to overfarm and put up a shield. Jocko overfarms, farming up just shy of the back-to-back, and now the opponent has to decide, are they willing to match shields? Yes, they will. Jocko wins charge attack priority, and that is massive. This guarantees the knockout or the final shield. Opponent double shields the Fearow. Jocko's just going to let it go, so the opponent has one switch, but now Jocko should be able to bring in the Gigalith and just strictly outpace the Fearow. Fearow is only 10 turns to the Drill Run, but Gigalith's pacing is so incredibly fast. Gigalith makes the Rock Slide, Fearow falls, and they're going to be sending in Aegislash. This is very bad news for Gigalith. Gigalith banks a Rock Slide for later, sends in the Clodsire, and in the back is Shadow Kingdra. With the extra damage given to Earthquake this season, can Clodsire pick up the knockout here, or is Clodsire going to need to go for the double Sludge Bomb? He's going to be full sending the Earthquake, hoping it's enough. Earthquake connects, big damage onto the Kingdra. Clodsire just can't get the farm down and will be forced to give up that final shield. The good news is the Clodsire should be able to inflict some pretty devastating damage onto the Aegislash. Aegislash hits the field to be immediately crushed under the weight of Earthquake, and if Aegislash ever throws energy early here, then it's just going to get destroyed by the stored energy that's on Gigalith, so they have to try and build up to the back-to-back. It's their only chance of the game. Earthquake lands, there's the combo play, back in comes the Gigalith, and there's the superpower. This is single resisted, but the Aegislash is simply too low. Gigalith takes the knockout and gets the win. Picking up a decent lead in game number 3, Fearow into Kanto Ninetales. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Kingdra, and this team doesn't have a strong answer to Kingdra. So Fearow's going to stay in, fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck gets a shield, and now in comes Gigalith. Gigalith has basically no fast attack pressure ever courtesy of Lock-On, but it does have very fast pacing, and it forces Kingdra to go for Surf instead of Swift. Gigalith's going to overfarm, play to the CMP tie. This Rock Slide has to knock out. Rock Slide connects. Shadow Kingdra survives. And that is where Lock-On can be so painful. Kingdra barely hangs on, pressures the final shield, and Gigalith gets the Lock-On down. But it turns out the opponent is very, very weak to rock damage. They bring in Mantine as their final Pokemon. Rock Slide from Gigalith will get the shield. Gigalith able to make Rock Slide number 2, and this is guaranteed massive damage onto the Mantine. Mantine able to survive, but not by much. There's a pivot out and a beautiful catch, able to preserve the Gigalith, and get the catch of the Water Pulse onto Fearow. Pivot from the opponent into Kanto Ninetales, but Fearow is able to hang on. It survives the Embers. It makes the Drill Run, big super effective damage onto the Kanto Ninetales. And now Kanto Ninetales is in very big trouble as out comes Clodsire. Clodsire is just too bulky. Ninetales can throw Weather Ball, it can throw Energy Ball, and neither move is going to be making a dent into the bulky Clodsire. They go for Energy Ball number 2. Clodsire tanks it like it's nothing, but this Sludge Bomb will be delivering a KO. There's still energy on Gigalith. In comes Gigalith, able to make the Rock Slide before Mantine gets the Twister. And the speed of Gigalith was actually pretty nice in that game. The opponent was very weak to Rock, and Gigalith was able to make them pay. Picking up a rough lead in game number 4, Fearow into Furret. What makes this matchup bad for Fearow is the Sucker Punch damage, so Jocko's gonna opt out. He banks a move on Fearow and gets a nice swift catch onto the Clodsire. Clodsire will be answered with an opposing Fearow. Jocko is not on Stone Edge, but obviously his opponent has no way of knowing that yet. So by Jocko building up to the Stone Edge, he should always be able to get a shield advantage out of the Fearow. Clodsire's in a really awkward health range for the opposing Fearow as well. Drill Run is super effective, but it will barely miss the knockout. He makes the Sludge Bomb, forces the CMP tie, and that is an incredibly good mid-game for Jocko. Not only was he able to get shield advantage, but he was able to pressure all of the opponent's energy. So now he can bring in his own Fearow, fire off Drill Peck, and Drill Peck will take the knockout. Back in comes Furret, but suddenly the game feels very different, because Fearow is able to double up on Drill Peck's opponent catches onto Clefable. Clefable could make life pretty awkward here though. In comes Gigalith. Gigalith will be able to outpace, but Gigalith not going to throw just yet. Instead, Gigalith going to try and exit with as much residual energy as possible. Clefable goes for the Meteor Mash. Gigalith gets the double up on Rock Slides. And Rock Slide should be enough to knock out Clefable. Rock Slide connects, Clefable gets KO'd, in comes the Furret, and the opponent is going to concede the match. Picking up a terrible lead in game number 5, Fearow into Hisuian Electrode. The only saving grace about this lead is that Fearow will win charge attack priority. Ideally, Fearow would love if the Hisuian Electrode put up the shield, and then Fearow could just be fully sacrificed to set up the Gigalith. So far, everything is going perfectly. The opponent ends up shielding. They actually went for an Energy Ball bait, and it's all going wrong for the opponent. They're forced to catch out onto a Mantine, but Mantine is about to get Rock Slide spammed to death by Gigalith. Gigalith hits the field before Mantine is even able to make a Twister. The Rock Slide is already available. They commit to the Water Pulse, and that allows Gigalith a massive overfarm. Rock Slide connects, Mantine falls, and now the opponent's going to be bringing in their final Pokemon, which is Florges. But Florges will get outpaced. The speed on Gigalith is crazy. Having no fast move pressure is a very big problem for this Pokemon, but if it's ever able to get up energy or at a shield advantage, I can see how Gigalith could actually put in some very nice work. Gigalith now going to be debuffed, really has to hope that Rock Slide will still be able to take the knockout here. Rock Slide is going to be shielded up, so Florges double shielding, and they just don't know the speed of Gigalith. The third Rock Slide is available. Florges is going to fall. All that energy down the drain. Back in comes the Electrode, and Electrode overfarms too much as well. Gigalith going on a rampage. A timer goes off, meaning that it's not going to be an excellent. They try for the farm down. They cannot get it, and I don't even know what's going on in this game anymore. Gigalith taking knockouts left and right and securing the win. We move to the next game, Fearow into Mantine. This should be a pretty good lead matchup for the Fearow. Even though Mantine has a substantial edge in terms of bulk, Fearow's always going to be winning charge attack priority. Opponent tries for a catch onto Licky, great patience from Jocko, and now he gets to send out Clodsire. Clodsire is just very neutrally dominant into Licky, and the extra damage from Earthquake really helps in this matchup. Clodsire going to strike first with the Sludge Bomb, just looking to land a little bit of chip damage before guaranteeing the KO with the Earthquake, but the Licky actually puts up the shield. I am shocked they're shielding in such a negative matchup, because even a third Shadow Ball would fail to take the KO here. Now, Clodsire gets to be full set of the Earthquake, and Earthquake is actually going to be double shielded. Whatever the opponent has in the back does not want to see Clodsire, but a third Shadow Ball just won't KO. I guess they could try and go for a combo play with the Mantine, but no, they're just staying on the field with the Licky. They've given up both shields, the Earthquake lands, and they just lose all their energy as they get sniped by the Fearow Drill Peck. What could go wrong has gone wrong for the opponent in this game. In comes Mantine, and Fearow is going to respect the potential Water Pulse. Mantine just going to go for the Twister. Fearow farming up, CMP tying the Mantine. Drill Peck won't come close to taking the knockout, but it will do a sizable dent in Mantine's health bar. Fearow going to be no shielding. The switch clock should be up relatively soon, and then it could be time to send in Gigalith. Mantine does not take the knockout. Fearow will be able to KO with the Drill Peck, and Gigalith has to win the endgame. It's going to be Jellicent in the back, and as long as Rock Slide 2 shots, and it probably does, then this game will end in a win. Gigalith launches Rock Slide number 1. It actually does not 2-shot, so unfortunately Gigalith won't be able to take the win, but there is still a little bit of HP remaining on the Fearow, and Fearow should just be able to peck down. So Gigalith has done its job. It's just going to be no shielding. Surf is going to be KOing. Gigalith is insanely frail, but Fearow gets the peck down and takes the win. We see a disastrous lead in the next match. Fearow into Morpeko. Fearow going to stay in, maybe try for an Aura Wheel catch onto the Clodsire, and gets it. That's a really nice play. Opponent probably baited with Psychic Fangs. No, they did not. They full set the Aura Wheel. That ends up being a big swing of momentum. Morpeko's attack stat has been boosted, and it's now in hangry mode, which means Aura Wheel is going to be dark. However, Clodsire is so bulky that it should be able to hang on to the +1 dark Aura Wheel. Clodsire has to decide, is it worth a shield? Clodsire says no, calls the Psychic Fangs bait, and everything that can go wrong for the opponent is going wrong in this one. Clodsire reaches for the Sludge Bomb, unable to get there. Just gonna be no shielding. Psychic Fangs comes out. It still does not KO. And I have very rarely seen such a mismanaged start to a game from an opponent. That is absolutely catastrophic. Sludge Bomb takes the knockout. They're going to be sending in Feraligatr. They could have brought in the Feraligatr ages ago, but instead, they chose to leave it on the bench, and now Feraligatr is about to get eviscerated by Fearow. Fearow respects the Ice Beam, ends up shielding the bait, but Fearow has to back-to-back Drill Pecks and will win Charge Attack priority over Feraligatr. Drill Peck number 1 lands, putting Feraligatr pretty low, goes for the Drill Run, covering for a catch, but instead it's just going to be a CMP tie. Drill Run, KOs Feraligatr. What do they have in the back? They have a Jumpluff in the back, and Fearow is now guaranteed to land a Drill Peck. Jumpluff is a very bulky Pokemon, but outside of that, honestly, I find that it really does not do much in this meta. Fearow gonna go for the full undercharge here, as it's still gonna take the KO. Oh, it actually did not, but it put it into perfect Lock-On downrange. Always gotta show them the Gigalith, and that's gonna be a good game. We move to the next match, leading Fearow into Shadow Quag. I believe that is an XXL Quag as well. Opponent safe switches into Tinkaton, and Fearow is more than happy to stay in and just launch Drill Run. Drill Run will connect, dealing very nice damage, and now that it's chipped, in comes the Clodsire. Clodsire will always no-shield the first in case they go for the Bulldoze, and that pays off as they Bulldoze, but they do not get the debuff. They're highly likely to Gigaton Hammer here on the potential CMP tie. Gigaton will still fail to take the knockout, but it will put a sizable dent into the Clodsire. Clodsire gonna go for the Earthquake, will undercharge, hoping it does not take the knockout, but Tinkaton does fall, and back in comes the Shadow Quagsire. Quagsire could get a full farm down here. That would be a little bit rough. Jocko can't really afford to let that happen, so he's gonna pivot out and send in the Fearow. This is enough for the Stone Edge. Jocko puts up the shield. It's not the Stone Edge. Most people, if they were in Quag, are not on Stone Edge anymore, although arguably with the rise of Mantine, they should probably go back to Stone Edge, because otherwise Quagsire is completely helpless. Charjabug shields the first Drill Peck, fires off energy to prevent Drill Peck number 2. They actually would have played to a CMP tie that they did not lose, but arguably them throwing energy is a little bit better. Clodsire tries for the catch, unable to get it. Is Clodsire outside of X-Scissor range? It's going to be close. They fire off the X-Scissor. No, Clodsire falls, and it's going to be Gigalith versus the world. Unfortunately, there's a lot of energy still stored on the Quagsire. Rock Slide will be shielded. Gigalith, I don't think, can really afford to shield here, because if it does shield, then Quagsire just knocks out. This charge is going to be no shielded. They're at the back-to-back, and yeah, there's just no path forward in this game. That is very tragic. In comes the Quagsire, but wait, they lose charge attack priority. Can Gigalith pull off a miracle? Rock Slide takes the knockout. In comes the Charjabug. Gigalith gets to the Rock Slide and somehow wins the game. I cannot believe it. Gigalith pulling off miracles and getting the win. Hopping into the final match, we see a very scary lead, Typhlosion into the Fearow. Fearow just gonna look to throw on good charge stack timing. A really nice play could be throwing 2 pecks and getting the Thunder Punch catch and sneak onto the Clodsire, but the opponent reads it. They undertap the Thunder Punch, and Fearow is just going to be fully sacrificed. However, it's all in the name of setting up Gigalith. Opponent safe switches out, they preserve Typhlosion, they send in Licky Licky, but Licky Licky is about to get destroyed by Superpower. Superpower is going to connect, and now in comes Clodsire. This is Clodsire's opportunity. Farm to 100, knock out with the Sludge Bomb, and exit with energy loaded to threaten whatever the opponent decides to send in. because Clodsire is really not worried about Licky Licky energy. Licky Licky can throw Shadow Ball, they can throw Body Slam. Either way, it's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage. Clodsire throws prior to 100, but is only 2 away from the Sludge Bomb, so if Typhlosion hits the field, Clodsire will always be able to outpace. Sludge Bomb should be knocking out Typhlosion. Typhlosion puts up the shield, and in comes Gigalith and snipes down mid-Incinerate. Gigalith now has a 2-0 shield advantage. It really doesn't matter what they have in the back. They have a Gourgeist, and the speed on Gigalith is just crazy. My goodness, Rock Slide number 1 is going to connect. Gigalith is going to make not quite able to get to Rock Slide number 2. Gigalith is just going to be no shielding, going for the 2-shield flex. Gigalith survives. It lived a super effective move. I never thought I'd see the day. Rock Slide KOs the Gourgeist, and that's a good game. Man, those were some unexpectedly very fun battles. So many thanks to Jocko for the battle submission. When I was simming Gigalith before the start of the season, I was simming with Superpower and Meteor Beam, and honestly, it looked absolutely abysmal. And to be fair, on even energy, even with Rock Slide and Superpower, it still does not sim well. However, Jocko's ability to use Fearow to pressure a shield advantage and then set up Gigalith to just simply outpace everything actually made a bad Pokemon look surprisingly very competent. It's a true testament to his skill as a battler that he was able to rack up win after win with this Pokemon, because if you take the time after watching this video to go sim it on PvPoke, you will realize this Pokemon sims absolutely terribly. I'm talking sometimes single-digit % win rates. This Pokemon gets absolutely destroyed in neutral head-to-head matchups. However, forcing that shield advantage and trying to set up Gigalith to be in as favorable spots as possible is really what allowed it to shine. After this video, honestly, it kind of made me want to try Gigalith myself, which is absurd. This Pokemon, it is definitely not a good Pokemon, but he made it look incredibly fun, and honestly, that's a real testament to him, because man, Gigalith really does not have a lot going for it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.